We got a big Friedman bomb as on 32 Thoughts, he revealed multiple names that are in trade rumors around the league, including Buffalo young center Dylan Cozens and a right-hand defenseman from Seattle, Will Borgen, that could very well fit exactly what the Habs are looking for. We have to dive into all of that. Plus, we got to talk a little bit about Ivan Demidov and some recent comments he made about the Habs organization and how he himself feels about a season in Russia. Coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. But Jesse, we're going to talk about something first. And there's a lot of players moving around in the NHL. So many trades so far. So many people finding new homes, new home ices. And if you want to find your new home ice, the best place is Rentals.ca, guys. They've been supporting our national team defend their home ice in international competition. But they've also been helping thousands of Canadians find their home ice all across the country.
They got you covered in Canada, whether it's Montreal, whether it's Toronto, whether it's Ottawa. They really have the best website in the game to find houses, condos, and apartments for rent. Check out their website. Maps, super easy to use, where you can not only find the city, but that neighborhood that you always wanted to live in and find amazing listings right there using their maps.
Find your new home ice with Rentals.ca. Check out their website in the pinned comment and description down below. Shout out to Rentals.ca. You guys know we love them. We use their website, and I hope you guys do too. Check it out down below. Let them know that we sent you. Jesse, time to get into this video, and I want to start with our boy Ivan Demidov real quick because there were some recent comments he made in an exclusive interview that I will link down below talking about the Habs and their recent visit, but also how he feels this season. And he says, Jesse, he's not satisfied. He said you can never be 100% happy, but he said it's been more or less okay, but I could do better. Physically, I feel good and don't feel the weight of the season on my body, which is great news for us. There aren't any major problems. I don't even feel much difference between playing in junior hockey and the KHL. Sure, I had to adjust at first, but now it feels fine. That's a crazy thing to say, but he also said that he keeps in touch with Montreal. He gets messages from team reps. It's not after every game, but quite often, maybe once every week or two. We discuss various things. Jesse, the fact that he's keeping in constant communication, also is very, very self-aware about his performance this season. I just love to hear this kind of talk from him.
For sure. And getting that FaceTime with a young player, again, Jeff Gordon and Bobrov were able to go over to St. Petersburg to be able to meet with them. Like, in a season where you're not getting the most ice time, to kind of be able to meet with your future bosses and then just to kind of help you keep the eye on the prize. Not that by the looking of it that he really needs that reminder, because this player is just in the gym all the time. I love it on his birthday. It's like, this is just another regular training day for him. So it kind of lends itself to the point of, some bold claims that he making. Like, he's absolutely right. Like, he's with Team Russia. He was playing with them today. And he's saying, like, yeah, I feel on the level of play is higher, but I feel on par with everybody else. Ivan Demidov, quit being modest. You're better than them. And we know that right now, right? Like, saying that he's not noticing that big of a difference from junior hockey, the MHL to the KHL, that's huge, because there is a huge level of difference in the competition. The KHL isn't what it was before, albeit still the same. That's a big jump in competition. It just shows kind of that potential that Demidov has, that elite level where he could just transition. He's been waiting to play with these better players. In fact, he's still waiting for more ice time.
Oh
but
my gosh,
we know, Jeff Gordon was coming to kind of remind him he's going to be getting that plenty very soon.
I'm really excited about this. You can tell he looks just as comfortable every single time he's on the ice, whether it's in the KHL or whether it was in the MHL. The dude just creates chances out of nowhere. Now, hopefully, we get to see him a little bit with this Russian national team thing going on right now. He didn't get any time in their first game, but it's very interesting to follow. Some really good comments. Let us know down below what you think about Demidov's comments, how he's keeping in touch with the Habs, and how that meeting with Gordon and Bobrov seemed to go pretty well. But, Jesse, it's time to dive into some big trade rumors, and we saw the F-bomb right off the bat. He spoke on 32 Thoughts about a bunch of things, but namely a couple of players that are up for trade talks. And the first one I want to talk about is not the big name, Dylan Cozens, that we will talk about in just a second, and how that might just make a lot of sense for Montreal. But the first one is Will Borgen. Apologies, this came out way bigger in a picture than I thought it was going to be. His low res doesn't matter. Will Borgen! He's being scouted by other teams, apparently. He's playing 2 minutes and 29 seconds less per game this year than he did last year. But Jesse, to me, this guy, Will Borgen, he's a defensive defenseman. He's more of a stay-at-home defenseman with solid wheels. Like, the guy can skate fairly well. He's not afraid to drop the mitts, be physical. He's 6'3", 27 years old from the right-hand side. Not much offensive upside, but the defensive upside really is there. And the big thing with him is that, one, he's on an expiring contract, so in my mind, he could replace a guy like David Savard. You could probably get more for David Savard to a contender than maybe they'd get for Will Borgen, though I don't really know if that's true. But still, you could almost replace him and have a younger guy kind of fill in and maybe try and re-sign him in the summer. But the big thing with him, Jesse, I think, is his physicality that he could bring to the Montreal blue line that we desperately need.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a fan of this, Josh. You know, we were talking last night about like what's kind of the solution. Matheson, bro, like what do we do here? And I was kind of mentioning, like, it seems like he needs to be like paired with a really defensive guy. Like, he has good numbers on the penalty kill, which goes to show when he's maybe playing with other good defensive players, he's good. Just obviously not like with Elaine Hudson. And you would tend to think he needs to be with like a natural defense. But you got a great point where it's like, but he needs to be with somebody that skates, because often the chances that he'll create will kind of, you know, maybe off a skate where his pairing, you know, will need to really be able to skate. To get back there, to kind of defend for him. And this is a guy who can skate. He plays the right-handed side. For me, it's almost a good thing that he's actually like a second pairing, you know, defensive sort of guy, because it then leaves that spot, you know, for Reinbacher. Let's say we sign, you know, a Borgen. It's like it allows either a Mailloux or a Reinbacher to take kind of that number one spot eventually. Definitely still a couple years away, which is why we're definitely looking at some options. But like, leaving that number one spot on the right hand, you know, obviously if we're looking at Hudson maybe being that top pair lefty, which I think for the future of the Montreal Canadiens, he'll be a staple there. It's like that definitely opens it up a lot more to Reinbacher. You'd say, you know, again, with that same logic of Hudson with the offense, pairing with Reinbacher, who's more of a defensive guy. He's definitely got offense in his game. Having more of that kind of shutdown guy, I think is just important given the offensive nature of many of the defensemen right now for the Montreal Canadiens. So, you know, I see it as being like, you know, a good fit in terms of that defensive guy that can also skate.
Yeah, like, I like him as an idea. My problem is I wonder if other teams are going to try and outbid, right? Because he's another guy that you wouldn't mind having for a playoff run. Expiring contract, $2.7 million at the deadline. That's really not that much. But if you're Montreal, you know, getting the first right to negotiate with the guy, show him the city and stuff, maybe have him as a second, third pairing, just a solid right-hand defenseman for a few years is not a bad idea. I know a lot of you guys miss Jonathan Kovacevic. I'm starting to miss him too. Justin Barron was the only right-hand shot defenseman playing for Montreal last night, and it really didn't look that great. So bringing in a guy who is in the NHL, though he's playing less time this year, only about 15 minutes a night, who can just be a steady presence in this second or third pairing, I think actually makes some sense in terms of stability for this team. But let us know what you guys think down below. I know it's not a big name, but I think it could fit maybe better than we expect. But we got to talk about the big name here, Jesse. Now, this is the big one. A lot of teams are talking about this guy. Pretty much everyone I've been talking to was like, we should trade for Dylan Cozens. We should trade for Dylan Cozens. There's a lot of teams sniffing around Dylan Cozens. I'd be terrified if I was the Sabres about making that deal. That's what Elliot Friedman said on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and reiterated it on 32 Thoughts today. So, you know, being terrified of your Buffalo is one thing, Jesse. Now, the big thing with Dylan Cozens is his point production has not really been there this year or last year. 47 points in 79 games is not bad, but this guy was pegged. He's 6'3", 23 years old. He was pegged as a future two-way star center, maybe a 2C of the future. At one point, he was thinking maybe a 1C eventually. He had that 31-goal season in his age 21 season, 68 points, but he just hasn't reached that level in the last 2 years. Though, at the same time, his contract is extended for $7.1 million until 2030. But his line mates have also not been that good, though they've moved Cozens to the wing. There's a lot of question marks around Cozens, Jesse. I know Buffalo fans have said, like, if teams are valuing him at that 30-goal future two-way 2C, we have to trade him. That's what I saw Buffalo fans saying. But I saw other teams like Habs fans and even other teams around the league saying, gosh, we'd have to give up the farm. We'd have to give up a bunch of players and prospects for this guy. The main name I was hearing from Montreal's side saying, let's give up Dach and maybe some picks, or Dach and someone else for him, give him both a change of scenery. What are your thoughts on Dylan Cozens, Jesse?
It's a mixed bag. Like, I liked him for Team Canada for sure as a player. For me, I would say right now, just that contract. If we're not talking about that contract, it's a different conversation entirely. I want to make sure that Slav's contract pans out first. I do think it will. I'm not trying to stir up some conversation. We love Slavzilla, right? We coined him that here on this channel. Obviously, we love him so much. He will pan out. But kind of taking on a Cozens contract, until you know that for sure, there's a lot of risk involved there, which I think Kent Hughes might be averse to. That being said, it's like, Josh, like, we've been hurt. Like, when it comes to the top six centers, like, we're going to go back. Like, yeah, I'm taking it back to Drew Way. You know, like, is he a center? Is he not? There's then been the Dach experiment. When it comes to our top six for the centers for Montreal Canadiens, I don't want to play around anymore. Like, I want a proven guy. Because obviously that 31 goals, 18 goals a year after, it's not bad. but I want more, Josh, and I want more of a proven track record at that very vital position.
Yeah, it's so tough because you know the potential is there, but like I saw Buffalo Sabres fans saying, like, there's more evidence of him being a 45 to 55 point guy who just can't quite figure it out in his own zone than there is of that original potential of being a point per game guy who's a solid big two-way center, because that's what people thought he would be, right? Again, that 68 point season there was expectations for him to be that future 1C of this team, but it just hasn't worked. But at the same time, Jesse, if let's say hypothetically Montreal does a Dach swap and for some reason Buffalo takes Dach plus some draft capital, or maybe Dach plus Mailloux is another offer I've seen tossed out there. I don't know what Buffalo would want. They have a history of making swaps for like similar age players. They traded Middlestat for Byram last year, just kind of a swap in terms of giving each a new place to play. Cozens and Dach could make sense, but again, just Dach alone is definitely not going to get this done. I mean, you're going to have to give some more. But putting him on that second line right away, giving him Patrick Laine to work with, could it work? I don't know. There's a lot of questions. I think he's way more proven than Dach. That's kind of where I'm sitting. But to commit that $7 million, Jesse, I think that's my sticking point. I mean, I don't know. The cap's going up. Like, am I crazy for saying that I think I do want this to happen? I think it's just emotion, but even at $7 million with the cap going up, like, I think he could be worth that. I think today's $5 million contracts are going to be this $7 million contract in 2 or 3 years. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, if the centerpiece is Dach and you don't have to give up something absolutely insane along with him, and for some reason Buffalo does it, which they probably won't, you get a player who's more proven than him who can slot in on the second line. I don't know. Maybe that's crazy talk.
You're allowed to feel that way. It's like, I think it's only the term. Like, for sure, the cap is going up. It's a fair conversation. They're talking the CBA. Like, they might start doing some big increases, like, fairly soon there. And it's like, without the contract, absolutely, without the term, which I would say is maybe the bigger thing of allowing that flexibility on your team at very important things. If it's not that, yeah, like, I am trading Dach and Mailloux for Cozens without that term, without that 7 years, because it's like, I just feel like we got a lot of offensive defensemen. As much as I like Mailloux, we kind of need to almost change around our existing core to kind of have them fit in properly there right now. I just don't think you can have too many offensive guys purely within your top four. I think the Montreal Canadiens, like, when we went to that Stanley Cup Finals, some people like to look at it an outlier, but there are certain takeaways that you can take away for success, I will say. And it's like that year, we had a lot of defensemen that were defensively minded. That works in playoffs. We know that old adage, defense wins championships. Obviously, offense matters more than ever on the back end. So you need to balance that out. I'm not saying having a decor completely recreating that, but I think there's still something to be said about that defensive defenseman. So with Mailloux and Dach, maybe players like Dach unless he's turning things around, we hate to say it, but he's playing himself out of a future with the Montreal Canadiens. Mailloux doesn't seem like, just not that he's a good player, but not almost the best fit. I know some fans might actually hate that. He might turn out to be a great player. Yeah. He's big. It's just that defensive side of the game, right? But if we're speaking objectively, if you're kind of observing all the kind of situations, which you have to do if you're Ken Hughes, I think it's without that term, even though you like Mailloux, you like Dach, you're doing that trade with the term. For me, I just can't do it.
Yeah, I think that's fair, actually. Like, because you're locking yourself up so much. I mean, you got Slaf long-term, you got Suzuki long-term, you got Caufield, then you have Cozens, and then you have Guhle, and then you'll have to sign Demidov and Reinbacher in a few years. And it's like there's just a lot of stuff going on, right? And I don't know. And then we don't know what the goalie situation is going to look like in a few years. Maybe Fowler, right? But on a cheap rookie deal, something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I think you're right. I think getting someone who is a bit more proven today is better, because if I know I'm locking up $7 million a year for the next 5 years, I'm going to want to know that this guy's going to get me at least 60, 65 points. And so it's tough. And I also just wanted to say that, like, I know Dach is the easy name to throw around right now, but I don't think it's doing him justice to give him a couple months after missing a whole season with knee surgery and just toss him out the window like that. Now, I do think that Dylan Cozens is still the better long-term prospect than Kirby Dach. I don't think that's crazy to say, but I also don't want to just toss him out there. And that sends a message to the players as well. Like, I'd say give him some time. I think it's way too early to give up on this guy, and I don't think Kent Hughes or management would do it. But we've gone on too long about this now. We could talk about this for days. Let us know what you guys think down below. Do you like Dylan Cozens? Would you trade someone on Montreal for him? Some prospects, some picks? I don't know what Buffalo would want, but I think Montreal has at least a decent package. But that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel like you always do. We really, really appreciate it. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.